Hello, it's your Grandpa Graham again. Just wanted to give you some more stories here, but also wanted to let you know that in another video, I made a mistake. So I called you Granny G, Grandma Graham, and I got in trouble. Even grandpas get in trouble sometimes. But remember, if you get in trouble, sometimes the best thing to do is just say you're sorry, okay, and say don't do it again. And usually things are okay. If you get mad, or if you get upset, sometimes it just makes it worse. So just remember that sometimes you get in trouble and it's really not your fault, but you can make the trouble go away pretty quick. But just saying you're sorry, understand that the other person didn't like it, and then you can be happy again. Because remember, you got two choices in life. You can be happy or you can be right. You can't really be both of them. So tonight I am going to read to you Cinderella. So let me get my glasses on. And Cinderella, bedtime stories for you. Once upon a time, every good story starts out once upon a time. A girl named Cinderella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters. Poor Cinderella had to work hard all day long. It was as soon as she woke up every morning and when it was still dark and cold to start the fire. It was she who cooked the meals. It was she who kept the fire going. The poor girl could not stay clean for all the ashes and cinder that came from the fire on her. She was dirty all the time. What a mess, her two stepsisters laughed, and that is why they called her Cinderella, because the cinders from the fire. One day, big news came to town. The king and queen were going to have a ball. Ball's like a big party. People get together, they get dressed up all fancy, and they dance. It was time for the prince to find a bride. All of the young ladies in the land were invited to come. They would wear their most beautiful gown and fix their hair extra nice. Maybe the prince would like them, they were hoping. At Cinderella's house, she now had to do extra work. She had to make two brand new gowns for her stepsisters. Faster, shouted one stepsister. You call that a dress? Screamed the other. Oh dear, said Cinderella. When can I? The stepmother marched into the room and said, when can you what? Well, said Cinderella, when will I have time to make my own dress for the ball? You? Yelled the stepmother. You said you were going to the ball. Who said you were going to the ball? What a laugh, said one stepsister. Such a mess. They pointed at Cinderella, and all of them laughed. Cinderella said to herself, when they look at me, maybe they see a mess, but I am not that way. And if I could, I would go to the ball. If I could, I would go to the ball. Sometime soon, the time came for the stepmother and stepsisters to leave for the big party. Their fine carriage came to the door. The stepmother and stepsisters hopped inside, and they were off. Goodbye, called Cinderella. Have a good time. But her stepmother and stepsisters did not turn around to see her. Ah, me, said Cinderella sadly. The carriage rode down the street. She said aloud, I wish I could go to the ball too. All of a sudden, in front of her was a fairy. Poof! You called? Said the fairy. Did I? Who are you? Why, I'm your fairy godmother. I know your wish, and I have come to grant it. But my wish is impossible. Excuse me, said the fairy godmother in a huff. Did I not just show up out of thin air? Yes, you did. Then let me be the one to say what is possible or not. Well, I think you know I want to go to the ball. She looked down at her dirty clothes. But look at me. You do look a bit of a mess, child, said the fairy godmother. Even if I had something nice to wear, I'd have no way to get there. Dear me, all of that is possible, said the fairy godmother. With that, she tapped her wand on Cinderella's head. At once, Cinderella was all clean. She was dressed in a beautiful blue gown. Her hair was set up high in her head and inside of a golden band. "This is wonderful," said Cinderella. "Who said I was done?" said the fairy godmother. She tapped her wand again. At once a beautiful carriage came to her with a driver and 4 white horses. "Am I dreaming?" said Cinderella. "It is real as real can be. But there's one thing you must know." "What's that?" "All of this lasts only till midnight. Tonight, at the stroke of midnight, it'll all be over. Everything will go back to how it was before." "Then I must make sure to leave the ball before midnight," said Cinderella. "Good idea," said the fairy godmother. She stepped back. "My work is done." And with that, the fairy godmother was gone. Cinderella looked around. Did that ever happen? But there she stood in a fine gown, with a gold band in her hair, and there was her driver and 4 horses before her waiting. "Coming?" called the driver. She stepped into the carriage, and they were off. Over at the ball, the prince did not know what to think. "Why do you have that sad look on your face?" the queen said to her son. "Look around. You could not ask for finer maidens than these." "I know, mother," said the prince. Yet he knew something was wrong. He had met many of the young women, yet after he said hello one by one, he could find nothing more to say. "Look," someone pointed to the front door. "Who is that?" All heads turned. Who was that lovely maiden stepping down from the stairs? She held her head tall and looked as if she belonged, but no one knew her. "There's something about her," said the prince to himself. "I will ask her to dance." And he walked over to Cinderella. "Have we met?" said the prince. "I am pleased to meet you now," said Cinderella. "I feel as if I know you, but of course it's impossible." The prince felt a leap in his heart, and he and Cinderella danced. And when the song was over, they danced again. And then they danced again, and yet again. Soon the other maidens at the ball grew jealous. "Why is he dancing all the time with her? How rude!" But all the prince could see was Cinderella. They laughed and talked, and they danced some more. In fact, they danced so long, Cinderella didn't see the clock. "Dong," said the clock. Cinderella looked up. "Dong," went the clock again. She looked up again. "Oh my," she cried, "it's almost midnight." "Dong," rung the clock. "Why does that matter?" said the prince. "Dong," called the clock. I must go," said Cinderella. "Dong," went the clock. "But we've just met. Why leave now?" "Dong," rang the clock. "I must go," said Cinderella, and she ran to the steps. "Dong," said the clock. "I cannot hear you," said the prince. "The clock is too loud." "Dong," rung the clock. "Goodbye," said Cinderella, and up the stairs she ran. "Please, please stop for a moment," cried the prince. "Oh dear," she said, as one of her glass slippers, pay attention, that's important later in the story, fell off her foot on the stairs, but Cinderella kept running up. "Dong," said the clock. "Please wait a moment," cried the prince. "Dong," rang the clock. "Goodbye," Cinderella turned one last time, and then she rushed out the door. "Wait," called the prince. He picked up the glass slipper and rushed out the door. He looked around, but he could not see her blue dress anywhere. "This is all I have left of her," he said, looking down at the glass slipper. He saw that it was made in a special way to fit a foot like none other. "Somewhere there is another glass slipper, and when I find it, I will find her too. And then I will ask her to be my bride." From hut to hut, from house to house, from castle to castle went the prince. One woman after another tried to fit her foot inside the glass slipper, but none could fit. And so the prince moved on. At very last house, the prince came to Cinderella's house. "He is coming," called one of the stepsisters as she looked out the window. "Quick," yelled the stepmother, "get ready. One of you must be the one to fit your foot into that glass slipper, no matter what." The prince knocked. The prince knocked. The stepmother flew open the door. "Come in, come in, come in. I have 2 lovely daughters for you to see." The first stepsister tried to place her foot in the glass slipper. She tried hard, but it just would not fit. Then the second stepsister tried to fit her foot inside. She tried and tried with all of her might, but no dice. "Are there Any other young women in the house? The prince asked. None, said the stepmother. Then I must go. Maybe there is one more, said Cinderella, stepping into the room. Clever girl. None who matter, said the stepmother with a hiss. Come here, said the prince. Cinderella stepped up to him. The prince got down on one knee and tried the slipper on her foot. Guess what? It fit perfectly. Then from her pocket, Cinderella took something else. It was the other glass slipper. I knew it. You are the one. What? Shouted a stepsister. Not her, screamed the other stepsister. This cannot be, yelled the stepmother, but it was too late. The prince knew that Cinderella was the one. He looked into her eyes. He did not see the cinders in her hair or the ashes on her face. I have found you, he said. And I have found you, said Cinderella. So Cinderella and the prince were married, and they lived happily ever after. So sometimes things happen that aren't your fault, and sometimes people might be mean to you. But if you stay a good person and you try real hard and you make sure you never give up, and it doesn't matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter what other people think of you, if you keep doing that, uh, maybe you won't find a prince, uh, but you'll find exactly what you need, and you will live happily ever after. And you might find a prince also. So, good night. Love you. Grandpa Graham saying goodbye.